Welcome to the IVM Podcast Network.
Hey guys, welcome back to Shunya 1, episode 7 here. And wow man, this is really something. I'm loving the kind of feedback we're getting. I hope you've been tuning in every week or so. And thank you so much for whatever we've received so far. But whoever hasn't listened to all the episodes yet, or whoever's listening in now, we would love to hear from you. Why don't you go on iTunes, give us some ratings, give us some reviews, really help us get out there. And obviously, check us out wherever you can. We're on ivmpodcast.com/Shunya1 and also on the IVM Podcast app, as well as wherever else you get your podcast from. So let's hope to get some more listeners on this.
Yeah, I know. We got dozens of listeners. Please give us more reviews.
All right, great. So just kick things off today. I'm here with Amit, and as always, we have a guest here. Today is a very old good friend of mine, Mayur, from yet another entrepreneur, and one which we have a lot of linkage in terms of the kind of bootstrapping we've both done over the years. And I think we're going to talk about stuff like that also today in the conversation. So, Mayur, why don't you introduce where people can find you and what you've been up to?
So, thank you, Sheila. That's a very nice introduction. And let me introduce myself as a tech entrepreneur. That's what I've been trying to become over the past 3 years now. And hopefully soon a businessman is what I really want to become.
Right.
And so I think you can find me on Twitter. And it's Mayur Aggarwal 7. And I know the Aggarwal spelling is going to be a little tricky to find out. But
2 G's, 1 G, R before A after R.
I actually forgot mine right now. And I'm quite glad, actually. But no, it's GGARWAL.
Okay.
7. And I've been running a tech startup in the logistics space. And pretty exciting.
And you've been bootstrapped ever since.
Yeah, pretty much. It's just that recently that we even thought about looking at VC money and things like that. But it's been fun. I think a lot of your research and development can actually happen much better if you're
and I know, right? I mean, for the longest time since we've interacted, I think we have been bootstrapped. And I've seen you literally as a one-person company.
Yes.
Do stuff like this. And in fact, and Amit, you've also done stuff in the past where
of course.
You've bootstrapped. Almost all of us have started our first companies for sure bootstrapped, right?
Absolutely.
And, I think it'll be...
Our office used to be in our briefcase.
Exactly. Yep. So, unlike the Valley, we don't have garages.
Yeah.
So
actually, my first company was a literal garage.
See, that's South Bombay. So most of Bombay doesn't have garages. So I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah.
But that's. I actually wanted to talk about this today. I think we are doing while we are catching up on what's happening this week, and I think there's some interesting stuff which did happen this week.
Yeah.
I do want to talk about what's the reality of sort of bootstrapping in the Indian context, and what's the reality of bootstrapped entrepreneur's life, and how much gory can it get?
It can get super gory. The pain is real.
The pain is real, right? So I mean, we all have our stories. We've been chatting about them, and I just to start it off, I remember. So when I first started my first company, pretty much it was an extension of what I was doing as a freelancer. So I said, hey, I was coding for other people while I was still graduating.
Yeah.
And that actually affected when I actually did graduate, but that's another story. But the point is, it was a natural extension for me because I figured out, hey, I can do this, and there are some people willing to pay me, even though the payment was pittance. So I said, hey, I'm going to start my own business. But once you start a business, you need more people.
Yeah.
That's where you transition from a freelancer to as whatever startup you are.
Yeah.
And you need other people, and other people aren't always going to work for free.
Yeah.
So you either...
Do you know other people who work for free?
No.
We're still searching.
Yeah, no one works for free. Whether it's hiring someone just to... If you're non-tech, if you want to outsource tech, or you want to outsource design, like I think a lot of us just design. Like the first thing you probably outsource is Your logo?
Yeah, I think.
Or,
that's-
you know?
Actually, my logo, that was the one thing I didn't know how to do.
See,
I-
exactly. Depends on which part of the business you know.
Yeah.
You pretty much outsource the other.
That's true.
And there are always issues with
Yeah.
getting that guy paid. Then you know how much, and you
Yeah.
haggle, and then you don't choose the right quality. You don't get what you want the first time.
I don't know, how old were you when you started your first one?
22.
22?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was around 24, I think. What about you? How old were you, Mayur?
I crossed my rock and roll age of 27 and then started.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I was an idiot back then, man. I mean, like, people took me for a ride in some cases, and I had no idea what I was doing.
No.
I feel like that sometimes even now.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, sure.
Like there are incidents when I said, "What?" I wake up and I
Yeah.
realize, wait, what?
Yeah.
Did I just do that? Did I really do that?
Yeah. But anyway, but since you brought that up,
Yeah.
right? So we both started fairly young. At how much money did you pull out of
in
just
the
doing
first
that
one,
first business?
So the first business, so I've always had more ambition than sense. So the first business I started was a e-commerce site in India in 1999.
It's very ambitious.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no sense, right? Because 3.5 lakh total internet users when we started.
Nice.
Wow.
So absolutely no sense. So at that time, it was an e-commerce business. We needed to kind of put some merchandise together and all of that kind of stuff. So it
Nice.
was actually a little more than it would have been if it was a pure tech business. But me and another partner put in 7.5 lakhs each at that time.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
In one shot, that's a lot of
Well, I
money.
mean, like over the first 6 months or so. I mean, like we put it in like not all at once, but yeah. But I mean, like we put that both in initially with this because again, neither of us were coders, right? So we needed to get somebody who was going to code the site for us.
Exactly, right? So that's the first thing
So
you needed
that
to
was the
spend
first
on.
expense. Then the second expense was we needed to develop a catalog, right? So I mean, like that meant a little bit of travel. It meant like having to kind of get people who would be willing to work with us and. You learn a lot about consignment, stock and sale, and all the other kind of things that happen in that kind of this,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
You want everything on consignment, but nobody's willing to give you shit on consignment.
Right.
So you have to stock and sale, and in which case that means that there's capital requirement for that to happen.
Yeah.
Wow. And this was, I mean, what?
99.
1299,
99,
right? So
yeah.
way back when logistics was still...
There was no logistics.
There was no logistics.
So the initial conception of the store was a Bombay-only store, and we had delivery guys who worked for us.
Yeah. I can imagine that.
Wait, I think there was a startup which got funded with the same idea just a month ago.
Probably.
No,
You guys were just 22 years early, I guess.
the joke around that is obviously, and I think Mayur, we should chat
Uh-huh.
with you about that.
Okay.
Logistics has just erupted as this crazy space in India, and to be honest, again, as an outsider, I know I interact with some amount of logistics folks. It seems that we're still solving the same problems we were solving 10 years ago. We're still solving, like you said, consignment and order tracking
I
and
agree with you.
paperwork and software.
Subscriptions, man, subscriptions.
The only thing which we have now is GPS. You know, that's pretty much the only technology innovation that's happened in logistics.
Yeah. So sadly, I think you'll have to base that on, how the country operates actually.
Yeah.
And, traditionally I've been calling India as a United States of India. 26 different states operate in a way, 26 different ways.
Right.
And generally what happens in trade between these states usually crosses 3 to 4 states.
Right.
And then you have GST
Exactly.
is going to help, I assume, in that.
That is the reason behind why
Yeah.
GST is coming in. So let me probably tell you, okay, maybe 6 years back when Flipkart came in, what they were trying to solve was this. And saying that, okay, I'm just localizing my holdings so that, it's within state itself. And that's where probably they try to learn from Amazon quite a bit.
Right.
But then, Amazon operates in a much efficient way because US has a better capital structure, taxation structure and things like that. So
Right.
they're more optimized for moving across states.
Right. I don't even think there are state-to-state taxes when you move across states for the general kind of this. There's consumption tax and there's
In
production
India?
tax in the U.S.
In the US, I think
don't
there
think-
are quite a few
Yeah.
taxes between states.
When
but,
you move goods from state to state?
But generally, what happens is it's much more streamlined. Right?
Okay.
The bureaucracy behind paying taxes in the US
Is much
is
simpler.
it's much simpler because the IRS is the only tax authority that
Right.
you hear of, right?
Right.
But over here, you know excise, you know VAT, you know service tax, you know income tax. There's so many guys who are there in taxation.
Oh man, and they're not structured. I mean, let's not get into how structured or unstructured those people are.
Absolutely.
Because
they don't want to be structured, right? Because that's where their opportunity to earn on the side comes.
exactly, and I think whenever GPS did come in, after that, I think GST, and we should talk about that a little bit more as well, is probably the one next big upgrade which India is going to get,
Yeah.
especially logistics and shipping and transportation. Things which pretty much affects every company. But depends on whatever kind of company, whether you're a hyperlocal food delivery or whether you're cross-country shipping. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big upgrade that's going to happen, and it's an interesting upgrade. But through this journey of zero tech to GPS suddenly in everything
Right,
to GST, I mean, my point was, I think we're so vast a country
Yeah.
with so much movement of goods
Yeah.
and people and whatnot. There's still so much ground to cover.
Yeah, I agree. I think, India should actually not be measured in miles, but in millions of people that you cross across.
Yeah.
I think it makes much bigger impact when you're trying to move through markets across
Right.
the country. And I think that's where the biggest challenge as well as the biggest opportunity is. Because
No, I think logistics, just generally the reason why I think it's such a large kind of space to, and there's so much opportunity, it's the thing that connects the two worlds, the digital world to the real world, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, like that is just the importance of that. Especially as primarily digital entrepreneurs, cannot really be overstated. I mean, that's just how else do you make what you're doing real?
Right.
I agree.
In fact, it's so much of, again, pulling back to bootstrapping, right? So much of startups in India are actually ones which are not digital. Like we are fundamentally, we think of solving problems in the real world first.
Right.
And I think so. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Most people who I know who've started up,
Yeah.
since, of course, maybe the current generation whose background is a lot more in tech and a lot more in digital and social and so on, think digital first. But at least in the last decade or so, most startups which have happened, they look at solving stuff in the real world.
Right. And
They look at obviously using tech to solve it, but ultimately it's a real world problem that
tech
they're trying to
enabled
solve.
as opposed to pure tech.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, and that's where you face the realities of India, and
Yeah.
and that's whether if it's not just on the ground in logistics, but coming back to bootstrapping, right? Like that's where you face that. Hey, I need to hire someone. Hey, I need to learn how to track attendance of those people.
Yeah.
I need to pay them PF. I need to.
I need to ensure
You
my
say
TDS.
PF and that just creates such sad and annoying memories, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
I'm
man.
sure.
PF is just such a crazy thing, right? I had absolutely no idea that once you get to 20 people, you then need to start basically filing PF. And I should have known this, I guess, but I didn't. And I found out 3 years later.
Wow.
So then
Number of penalties that must
the
have
penalties that
multiple,
accrued and the business we're in, people come and go all the time.
Oh, and you had to
You have to now figure out how to pay PF to people who are no longer working for you.
That's crazy.
It was just the most, man, that was so, I don't even, wow, I'll never make that mistake again.
Well, that hit a
Yeah.
nerve
It-
right there.
it
I think that really hit a
did.
nerve.
It really,
there.
really
but
did.
That's crazy. I mean, again, right? That's HR.
Yeah, it
so
is.
even HR as a, why are you bootstrapping? Why even as a funded entrepreneur, HR is something which you have to learn the hard way.
Yeah, and we don't actually appreciate the importance of it in some ways, right? I mean,
That's
because I have a team. My team loves me. My team is awesome. Everybody's really, really cool. You know, I mean, like this stuff is awesome. You know, I mean, like everybody's so happy about shit. But importance of HR and the processes that come behind hiring and that come behind all of this stuff. I mean, like that stuff, again, it's really, really critical to make sure that you grow in the right way. Otherwise, you'll get stuck with a 3-year-long PF bill with like probably 3 times the amount of money to pay because of penalties.
Oh, let's not go into penalty space because we've all paid some penalties at some point. Some, and surprisingly, most of them are involuntary. It's not that... it's not that you're skipping a red light and
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you just find out that, oh my God, I had to do this.
Yeah. So that's where the problem with entrepreneurship also occurs, like the lack of clarity around what's the right course of action for.
I think you're rightly putting it, because once you look at a parallel with college. Once you sign up with college, you know how the syllabus is across the 8 semesters.
Right. More or less.
You know what? We don't have anything for business. Even if a 3-pager document that would have said that, okay, this is where you might
pay attention to
where you might that I'm sorry for using those words, but generally that is how it happens. And if you have probably a reader like that, we don't have that.
No, we don't. Right.
And that's the reason why we kind of learn it in the hard way. And pretty much every entrepreneur that I know of, before he cracks that smile in the morning, he has to have a few grey hair on his body. Otherwise, they're generally frowning.
Which reminds me, the best or first friend you make as an entrepreneur is probably a CA.
Oh, yeah. Dude, seriously, same CA. Since I started in 99.
Because you just think that, hey, he has my back.
He has your back more than anybody else, actually.
So it's a love-hate relationship.
It is. It very much is. Because again, my CA should have made sure that I didn't have a PF problem.
Exactly.
But
I think the CAs dominate the business community. They kind of they're the problem fixers in the business
They
world.
are the fixers, right? I mean, like all this stuff. I mean, like even once the PF thing happened, who got it sorted? He got it sorted, right?
Yeah.
So.
But now with GST coming, I know my CA has already said, listen, I have much lesser time for you than I used to.
Yeah.
So please try to do some stuff on your own and not burden me with it. Don't make mistakes.
Yeah.
Because they're all up in arms because apparently there's obviously a lack of talent, or rather I would say affordable talent, even in the CAs.
There's dude, I mean, like their exam is so tough, right? I mean, like, and the number of people who pass so few that, I mean, like there's a serious demand supply issue there. I mean, like the supply is seriously constrained over there for people who can kind of get in this. And the people who don't pass these exams are not like dumb people, man, right? I mean, like I'm sure you all know people who have not been able to clear CA exams 2, 3, 4 times.
Correct.
And it's just like, what? I mean, like, why is this qualification this difficult?
Beyond being an excruciating exam, I think what, again, it's along the lines of the kind of people who are inducted into the workforce there, right? The ones who, as far as I know, again, I'm not so well aware about the
CA community that way.
Community, but it's a high bar. It's like maybe becoming a lawyer, or is it?
No, it's
bigger?
more than that. It's tougher than becoming a lawyer. Becoming a lawyer is relatively easy. Passing the bar is not so easy, but getting through the rest of it's not so difficult. The thing with the CA exam, and I do have a little bit. I did look into selling a software to CAs once. So I mean, like I looked into the market a little bit.
Nice.
The thing with the CA community just generally is that there is there's a certain amount of rent seeking, to be very honest. The existing CAs don't want so many new CAs because that's competition for them.
Yeah.
And so they kind of like the fact that there isn't that much supply of CAs.
It's just crazy.
Yeah.
They are very astute businessmen, as a matter of fact, because in their own field they kind of make sure monopoly exists. Yeah. But they're generally talking about good competition out in the market.
Absolutely. I mean, like, also, I mean, like, I know that this is the case for me. I'm sure it's the case for you guys as well. That I mean, like, in many cases, it's the CA that handles most of our accounting work.
Of course.
Yeah. So I mean, like,
they know all your dirty books.
Why don't we have why aren't there general accounting firms? Which are non-CA accounting firms, right? I'm not saying that they don't exist. There are a few here and there.
No, I think it generally comes down to, how the tax structure is laid out. And I think probably the reason why lately you would see a lot of CAs up in arms is because GST is kind of fixing it. So, probably what will happen is, okay, speak to any of your NRI or an American friend or a UK British citizen. Ask them who's your CA. They don't have CAs.
Yeah, they don't.
How come they operate without CAs and we are so dependent on them?
No, they have accountants who handle their accounting. They do their own filing. The accountants will handle the filing.
Exactly.
This chartered accountant thing is, it's a little...
It's very interesting when you say, okay, in India, there's so many CAs who you're so very fundamentally dependent on.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably going to be partly to them also to be blamed, because I think most laws, this, that, their council, their community, they are deciding how the loopholes have to be created, and they are generally the ones. So let me put it this way: they're the ones who put the building on fire.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who come with the water.
One who come with the water hose.
Yeah, but it's crazy that laws in general are so taxing beyond just being taxation. That an entrepreneur, obviously, who doesn't want to, doesn't want to burden himself with things like what's wrong or what's right.
Right.
Gets stuck with.
Well, I think that's a little part. You kind of do want to know what's wrong. No, but right. Right or wrong?
No, but under the books is what he's talking about.
I'm sorry, man. I did not mean to disrupt that.
I meant.
I know what you meant, but I just had to react to the way you said it.
Yeah, but I guess, with GST, I think a lot of new things are also happening. I think...
beyond GST, since you brought that up, what's wrong or what's right, I meant is that what's the wrong or right way to handle something.
Right, yeah.
Okay? There's always a right way and a wrong way to handle something, or what are his optimal ways of handling a situation or whatever. And I think that brings us to one of the stories we were talking about this week, where... again, very closely tied to accounting and taxation are the legal implications of what you do in finance and what you do with your business.
Right.
And I think what we're reading about is the article this week, which said that basically our judiciary itself isn't sort of handling, I would say the kind of cases which it should be handling.
Yeah.
Or rather, people are using ways to, not grow, not do the kind of judiciary cases which otherwise would be expected of a growing economy of ours, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. You're talking about the article from the Ken, right? I thought there were some really interesting points in there, right? I mean, the most interesting thing that I thought in that, and the most telling aspect of things in that, was this idea that when economies are generally growing at the rate that Indian economy is growing, you should see a big spike in the amount of civil cases. And we're not seeing that at all. Civil case filings are flat. And the reason for that is because civil cases take forever to adjudicate, right? So, I mean, in the same article, they mentioned how I think more than 60% of the cases in Bombay High Court are more than 2 years old. So
that's crazy.
That's insane. That's just crazy, right? I mean, you want to sue somebody for, hey, you didn't pay my bill, I need to sue you. It's going to take me 2 years to kind of even get a judgment out of this. That's nuts.
Right. No, so that's where exactly, right, what they're talking about is also that sort of puts you off even filing the case in the first place.
Exactly. And people misuse criminal statutes then.
Yeah, and
that becomes the bigger part of the problem, right? Because now as an entrepreneur, all of a sudden you're in jeopardy of jail for having a dispute with somebody over a contract.
Exactly.
And that's just crazy.
Yeah, and no, the thought of that, right? Again, not to put fear into someone's looking to start up or something like that, but people should know that what's the implication of whatever I do. Again, coming back to my right or wrong point, right?
Right.
They should know that, hey, what will mess with me, what will screw up my business and my life, or to what extent, versus what's my safe playing ground. I mean, I think that clarity itself we don't have, or because it's so complicated, we don't even bother with.
We don't. I think bother with is a great way to look at it.
That's where people start saying, oh no, this is too complicated, let me just find a trusted advisor who will say, don't worry about a thing.
I'll fix it.
And I'll just gloss. I'll not even look at the intricacies of it and choose to, focus on whatever I like to focus on. And that piles up. As an entrepreneur, I think the first thing you try to do is, okay, CA. I found a CA. He'll solve all my problems. Let's hope he does a good job and I'm safe. Then, again, with outsourcing tech, with doing whatever else, it grows, and that's a bad attitude. I think the fact that most people don't want to go deep because it's the deep is so deep
Yeah.
I think that's true in certain areas, right? I feel like entrepreneurs generally, you're right. I mean, like when it comes to the legal areas, when it comes to the accounting areas, when it comes to
Things which have been traditionally messy.
Exactly. Those areas entrepreneurs want to keep their fingers out of.
Yeah,
You know?
but ideally it shouldn't be so bad, right? It should be
there's-
should be something which they clearly understand. May
know-
not be going deep into, but it should be something they shouldn't fear.
We didn't want to talk too much about Uber this week, right? But actually, if you think about what you're
Yeah.
saying right now, right?
Yeah.
The reason, so a big part of, I think, the reason why Uber's culture is so toxic
Yeah.
is because they are getting into these areas. They're getting into these nasty areas of the world where things are not clear cut. I mean, like when you're talking about transportation infrastructure, you're talking about governmental regulation, you're talking about taxi unions across the world. You're talking about this kind of, you're playing in this field, right?
Right.
You can't play in this field if you're not super aggressive. I mean, you're going to get nowhere.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's part of it's not a good thing necessarily, but I think that's what in some ways a lot of Indian entrepreneurs are missing, that level of aggressiveness in some ways because they're looking to solve the neat problems.
Yeah, they're looking to solve the easy top of the pyramid,
Exactly.
superficial,
Yeah.
easy problems.
But
yeah.
getting into the dirt is not easy, right? When you
Yeah.
I mean, like you're doing logistics, so you're dealing with all the nasty shit in the world, right? So
Yeah, they actually have a saying in my field that, it's the runt of the family that's going to go into logistics.
Okay.
And
Wow.
yeah,
Who
generally,
says this?
any transportation family that you speak to is the funny boy who failed in 12th twice who's going to take up transportation as his main business, right? Because it's so messy, right? You're dealing with drivers who are not educated. They themselves don't know what their rights are.
Right.
And now you're suddenly putting them in a situation where you're violating state laws, central laws, personal laws, business laws, and then you're trying to leverage and you're making like whatever, trying to make 200% out of it because there's no steady stream.
Right.
And what you're trying to do is maybe if I can make a big buck out of this now, probably the lean periods, my family is fed. And that's how the tendency has been. It's pretty much like a wild...
That's like formula middleman for all things in India.
all things in India. I think
That's
how it
like the
operates.
Quintessential broker you defined.
Absolutely. They have to have 4 phones and they have to have like one mistress on the side and, they usually carry a lot of gold with them.
That's the guys who've made it.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like even the first guy, the guy who's doing his
Absolutely.
first deal.
Yeah,
he will
yeah.
think this is like this one deal will make my life. Let me overcharge everyone around me by 100 times.
I think that's where Amit was right in saying that, people are not aggressive. They're taking this easy money and running the system. They're saying that if there are 20 fences from me to an efficient way of me doing work, let
me go through 4 of them.
Yeah.
4 easy ones that are made of like crappy wood. Let me break through those.
Yeah, and you don't want to jump between these fences. If grass is green on the other side, let's just move here. But not break through these fences and create a highway. They don't want to do that.
Yeah,
I agree.
I buy
That's
that.
why I think Travis has been probably blamed for his bro culture, but he went aggressive.
He did. It's not an easy business. Again, I'm not defending a lot of that stuff, right?
No,
Because
no.
a lot of the stuff is objectively wrong, right? But you can't play in these arenas if you're not willing to get down in the dirt. I mean, like you just can't.
You know what? Let's not make it into a sexist thing either, because if you remember Theranos,
Yeah, absolutely.
she ran the whole space in a very interesting way
Right.
because she was also breaking a lot of barriers.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure right now, there's no man coming up and saying that, okay, I was probably whatever. But, she broke a lot of thought processes. But at the end of the day, a lot of people in the traditional space came back and said she was just faking it.
Yeah.
She was using our traditional equipment and giving you those tests back by saying that it's her proprietary machine.
That was just straight up fraud, though, right? I mean, like that's from what I understand around a lot of the Theranos stuff. Some of it, like the technology was interesting, but it was way too far away to be practicable.
So, I think what my point essentially was that a lot of these aggressive moves generally don't have a basis that most people would understand. The repercussions would be on these sides. Fraud is happening or probably sexual allegations. But that's probably the nature of their aggression. That's going to be a trade-off.
Yeah, if you're aggressive, you're aggressive, right? You can't really turn it on and off.
Through and through.
Yeah, it's not like, okay, I'm aggressive in these three aspects of my life. The rest of my life, I'm just like the most chilled out guy in the world. That's not how human nature works, right?
Right. Funny. Anyway, and on that note, I think we'll take a quick break. Be right back and continue this conversation.
Sounds good.
What's the best new restaurant in town?
Which bar sucked?
What's the worst new Hindi film?
What's the most obscure thing to do on the weekend?
And what's the most interesting new walking tour?
If you want to know how to make the most of Bombay, listen to the Podcast by thedailypow.com. We are Pronuti,
Amit,
And Purva.
We're your guide to what to do, see, and eat in the city. You can find new episodes of the podcast every Monday on the IVM Podcast app or any other podcasting app that you prefer, and on thedailypow.com.
So yeah, welcome back. I think the conversation was going in interesting directions with starting with bootstrapping and then talking about logistics. But I do want to get into a little bit more about logistics. And since you're here, Mayur, we want to pick your brain, as Amit said.
Okay.
It's something which is so big in India, right? It's been big, obviously, but it's been a dark economy of sorts to most people, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we only know now, probably, again, when I started out first, the first thing I learned about was, again, courier companies.
Yeah.
So courier companies were the only thing which I knew that, hey, I need to send a parcel or I need to send a letter. I need a courier company.
Yeah.
Guy comes, takes it, goes. I don't know what happens in his dark warehouse. I don't know how many hands that thing goes through.
Yeah.
And it gets to the other side at some point.
Yeah.
Then eventually, obviously, I started realizing, there's air freight and there's this and that and that and that.
Right.
And then when your personal life grows, you start talking to small shippers, like I need to move houses and so on. There's so much you realize that you interact with logistics. And now with hyper-local and food delivery and grocery delivery, I think we interact with logistics on a daily basis.
All the time.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, your day starts off when your newspaper lands on your door.
Right.
Till the last minute when you're getting dropped home by your Uber.
Right.
I think logistics is touching you in a very fundamental manner. The thing is, sadly, it's been badly labeled probably.
Yeah.
That's I was just about to ask you that, right? Like, what would you say, because we're talking about a lot of different things over here, right?
Yeah.
So is all of it encompassed by logistics, or is some aspect of all of it encompassed by logistics?
See, a lot of methods are with logistics. Now, if you look at Uber, it is essentially logistics, right? It's moving people instead of cargo. There's no real difference in doing things. That's the reason why Travis also said Uber should move into cargo, and that's what's one of their new products. Let me put it this way that, 13% of the GDP.
Right.
So you're saying a very big facet of your goods and services are being touched upon in a very significant manner.
Right.
By logistics.
Right.
So a lot of people's livelihoods, a lot of people are touching your cargo as it moves. That's the reason why it's grown that way as well.
Right.
A lot of unskilled labor generally tends to move into logistics or warehousing.
Right.
As population has grown, a lot of more people have been accommodated into logistics and warehousing.
Right.
Now, if you traditionally look at warehousing or logistics, they are usually people who are politically connected, people who are either patrons of political parties or themselves in that whole spectrum. One of the biggest things that they can get access to is cheap labor.
Right.
Cheap, unskilled labor.
And
I
never made that connection.
So that kind of builds the building block of the multi-level broker facet. The more people I have in the value stream, I too get ignored for my big margins. It's like there's somebody else across the state at your end who's also running a very bad show, but you're paying him 6%. Why not pay me 6% as well? Probably both of them could have been eliminated by one guy who's running it in a more efficient manner at 3%.
Right.
But then, that's how the political connection comes in, right?
No, that makes sense, right? Also, it's patronage jobs, right? I mean, like in some ways, if you're a politician and you're able to
influence a community in saying that, I'm going to allow warehouses to be put here. It's a no-brainer completely. You were fishing till now.
Yep.
Why not just pick gunny bags on your back and then, you're going to get paid 50 rupees per gunny bag.
Exactly.
No questions asked. And that's how, most warehouses operate. As a matter of fact, when Shiladitya was saying that, it's almost like a black box. I don't know how logistics moves, how many hands it's changed.
Right.
because the number of hands it keeps changing,
Is-
there's usually a coordinator who's making a lot of money out of it.
Right.
And that's the reason why it's so difficult to understand, because people's margins depend on it. The more difficult they make it, the more money they can make out of you by saying
Right.
that, see, this black box you don't understand, right? You
Yeah.
want your courier in Delhi tomorrow?
This is what you
This is
pay
what
for.
I was gonna pay.
Exactly.
And that's where I think technology has been slowly cutting into disrupting that.
Exactly.
With GPS and with
Yeah.
everything else, you at least know somewhat how your goods are moving, how
No,
fast and how where.
Exactly.
and-
Good tracking has become much more efficient now than it used to be, right? I mean, like,
Absolutely.
I was talking to a friend of mine who runs a custom clearing kind
Yeah,
of company,
yeah.
right? And they now track stuff at a much more granular level than they ever did, right? I mean, like, just in terms of like, he was running me through the software that he had created for
Yeah,
this thing, and it
yeah.
was like, it was their own software and this,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
like, it's like every consignment has like statuses going from here to here, here to
Yeah,
here,
yeah, yeah.
here to here. This is where it is in the customs place.
Yeah.
Okay, it's come from customs. It's now gone to shipping. Now it's in the shipping. Sorry, it's gone
It's
from
gone to
customs.
health.
Yeah,
Yeah, then it's moved to somebody
Exactly,
else. It
and
probably
now-
got to taxation.
Right.
Then it's come back to warehousing.
And now we're putting it in the truck, and the truck is going from the truck just crossed the Bombay Check Naka, and now
Yeah.
it just got into Karnataka, and like they're
Absolutely.
getting a degree of tracking which was not there earlier.
Visibility
Yeah.
in the whole supply chain
Yeah.
that they've never really accessed.
And they're
earlier.
being able to give that to their customers, which I
As a
think
matter of
is also a big benefit.
So
right?
this is where, the game's going to change over the next 2-5 years. Whoever's giving more visibility, the customers are going to go closer to him.
right.
Because now not only are they able to get a better service level out of their supplier, or rather their logistics service provider, but they'll also in time be able to bargain much better.
Exactly. Transparency in business always leads to more competition also.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's more assurance, right? That's what
Absolutely.
people want, assurance now. I mean, we are
Absolutely.
used to knowing where our car is, knowing where our food is.
Absolutely. So right now, I think the general tendency, everybody looks at e-commerce as the way the efficient logistics is. That's the most efficient logistics you would feel, right?
Right.
But that's not the industry who broke the barriers. It was the pharmaceutical industry.
That is cold chains. Cold
Absolutely.
storage.
They said, I'm making something that is perishable
Right.
and saves lives.
Right.
If from Pune, the Punawalas, they make this amongst the last.
Sapka
Absolutely.
thing.
Yeah,
Man,
from the horse.
that just blows my mind,
Yeah.
right? You know about this, right?
I know. So why don't you tell us?
It's just basically that they make snake venom antidote, and
And they make it from their stud farm.
yeah, and I mean like
They have a
just-
lot of
Yeah, I
horses.
know that.
Yeah, and just I mean like the sheer amount of, I mean like snake venom leads you to being able to buy the American embassy on British candy.
Bleach candy.
I love that, man.
Yeah, well, I never
That's
looked at that way,
that's
but
a
yeah.
very interesting. Are they bootstrapped?
I don't
Do they have a
know.
good CA?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he had a great CA when he started out. But no, so obviously,
Yeah.
so there are so many very India-specific classic
Yeah.
stories like that, right? And I think if you dig deeper on all of them, they all have a logistics angle to it.
Yeah.
Because we are a huge country. We are, like you said at the start, right? We are a country across of 25 or odd states.
Yeah.
So, and there's one every few years, new one.
Nah, technically with the Union Territories now we're 31. So
See?
yeah, it's a United States of India.
Yeah. So I think all the success stories.
But
in
actually,
some or the other
that's a
business.
very interesting thing, because now if in 10 years logistics becomes efficient, I think generally the economy itself is going to start looking and thinking in a very efficient manner. Because if I ask for my parcel and it comes 12 hours later, I'm going to look at another service provider and say, why don't you do things at an efficient level?
Yeah.
It's going to become the benchmark of comparing with other things.
In my opinion, for whatever it's worth, right? Logistics is the single biggest area where India can improve its efficiency and productivity by so much. It's not even funny, right? I mean, like right now, the amount of time it takes for goods to get from a factory to a distributor is insane.
It's insane.
It is insane when I hear these numbers and somebody's like, we just set our shipment out because we are going to run out of stock in 20 days and we need to make sure that it needs to get there on time. I'm like, wait, 20 days?
And you'll run out?
No, and 20 days is 2%. I mean, like if you're running a manufacturing business, 20 days is 2%.
Yeah.
So that means that basically in a year, you're looking at 25% productivity that can just happen by being able to cut that number in this. So I mean, like the amount of productivity that can be increased through efficiency.
That's
I guess that's why you're in the logistics business.
I think if you can make it efficient, you're generally looking at a lot of mass OEMs who are just gonna come to you and say, okay, we want efficiency, we don't want too many complications, and that's how it's going to be a good value adder to them as well. Because tomorrow now cars are going to be cheaper to you all, goods are going to be cheaper to you all.
Yeah.
All of this kind of, I think, Amit, what you're trying to hint at is it's going to give a culture change in some ways. Efficiency is going to come into people and saying that, okay, even my laborer or somebody who is doing my moving and shifting is so efficient. I don't know why this maid cannot be this efficient. It's going to be always a parallel in that.
No, but
way.
efficiency will increase across.
No, I think, but that's, by the way, that sort of an anecdote is probably one of the driving forces of a lot of general change in the way people perceive, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, if I can expect my food in 30 minutes or whatever, a cab in every 5 minutes, whenever I want one. That will just ask people at least will start asking for that in every aspect of life. So payments, right? I mean, payments we've spoken about so many times.
So I was actually just going to come to that, but I was going to come to that a little bit further back, right? I'm thinking about how we used to go to banks. Again, I'm older than both of you guys, but when in the 80s, when we used to go to a bank to get cash out, do you know how much of an effort it was? I mean, like, so we used to have an account at this place called Bank of Baroda. At Bank of Baroda, you would first go to a teller. You would give them the check. The teller would then give you a token. You would then sit with that token for 20 minutes, waiting for somebody to call you.
It's not 80s. That was there in the 90s too.
Was it really?
Yeah. I've done the token thing.
We got ATMs by like 95 when I moved back to India. 95, 96 we got ATMs.
I mean, actually, you know what? In November, everybody got a refresher of that.
Yes, they did.
Everybody had to essentially go down.
I think so.
They got their tokens. And
but
they
we
got
used to do that every time, right? So we've gone from that point where, like, going to the bank to take out 5,000 rupees in cash would take you an hour and a half.
Absolutely.
We've gone from that to the point of ATM to the point of, hey, I owe you some money.
Absolutely.
Here, Paytm transfer. Done.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
that's true. So I think it's going to happen in every field. I think more fundamental the field, like logistics is such a fundamental field. I think it will obviously get better.
Yeah, I think banking is another fundamental field. That's where you're seeing efficiency come in. Probably there are a lot of other fields.
It'll take a while. It'll take its own course.
It will. Of course it will. But I think that it's, I mean, like, it's happening. It's moving in that direction. I think... So one of the advantages of having family businesses is that family businesses have young members who are typically entering family businesses as well, right? So these young people do have a little bit more kind of, hey, we should be doing this better. They have a little bit kind of not always looking at the status quo kind of thing.
Correct.
And if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of logistics is driven by family businesses.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's usually second, third generation. And sadly, that's what we are seeing. And that's the reason why that change is also happening in logistics, because the next generation is not joining.
Yeah.
Now they're all getting studied abroad. They don't want to come back here and run it the same Lala way of doing things.
Exactly. They're looking at, they're professionalizing, right?
As a matter of fact, I know quite a few transportation companies where my peer group, my age, their generation, have essentially not joined the business.
Simply because, again, they don't want to get their hands dirty.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
And, so probably, in some ways, touch wood, hopefully, the earlier generations just going to force efficiency into the system because they want their next generation to come into the business.
That's a very weird way of looking at it. It's such a twisted way of thinking how the country is going to progress.
They're going to have to. If they don't, that they're going to fall by the wayside, because there will be fresh players who come in, right? There will be people who come in who don't have that baggage, who are going to look at how do we make this efficient? How do we make this work in the right way? And GST is a big deal, right? I mean, a lot of the reason why you need these massive trucking companies that are working pan-India is because they handle a lot of this paperwork, right?
Absolutely.
Moving from one state to the next state where you have, what is the MVAT or something like that? There's some tax like that, right? Yeah. Which is just the most...
There's road tax.
It's the most complicated tax in the world.
I'm going to ask you, how many taxes have you seen on a single bill? What's the maximum?
No, so thankfully...
okay, one shipment.
One shipment. Cascading effect from start to finish. You can get it up to 28 different taxes.
Wow.
That is starting from manufacturing in Baddi. where you're saving excise and then you're moving stuff out of that into a non-excise zone to octroi to LBT to. So if you look at a manufacturer's accountant's ledger, he'll probably be able to give you those 28 taxes that he incurred.
Which will now become 1?
Not technically, but yeah. I think it'll be... So what is happening is everybody's got these preconceived notions that all of these taxes are going to be combined into one tax.
Right.
It's going to be a lot of these departments that are going to be combined into one department that you're going to be speaking to.
Okay.
So GST itself has 4-5 slabs already, where, food and perishables is one, or
Yeah,
pharma
but those
and
are
medical.
gross slabs. Like, if you fall in one, you don't fall in the other.
I agree with you. And that's how manufacturing also used to fall under that category, that I'm making only these kind of things. I'm making
Right.
food and I'm making it in an SEZ and things like that. So I'm not applicable for a lot of things. What would happen is you would speak to an excise department, a VAT department, a service tax department, an octroi department. All of that is going to essentially move out. You're going to be speaking to one GST
Right.
department. That itself has got so much efficiency to it, So that is one of the biggest changes that are going to happen, which a
Interesting.
lot of people are not talking about. But slabs are going to remain.
No, there
So
are
28 taxes will become how many taxes?
No, I think I've not got a very clear answer to that. But I've got the session for GST tomorrow with my CA. Yeah.
We all have to do it. We all have been.
I would love to give you all invites, but that's how
that's all
CAs
right.
operate. It's a very close. I don't think you guys are on my retainer. You're not welcome.
No, but listen, so there's, I think, again, sadly, while this is meant to be a means to bring efficiency, at least for a initial while, I have a feeling it's going to be another opportunity for CS to say, hey, let's
Yes.
trust me.
Yeah.
Give me more money
Absolutely.
and just trust me with this.
I think
You don't want to know.
I think you're 100% right about
Yeah,
that.
so at least for a while.
In the short run. In the long run, I mean, I think that it should help. I think being able to set off different taxes against
Yeah,
each other is going to...
yeah.
I mean, so this was a problem we faced, right? So when we started the business, or when we built the studio, and we built the
Yeah.
office and all of that was a big part of the money that we spent last year, right? When we were doing this
The
business.
capex,
Yeah, but this is all VAT. Okay, so all of the
Yes.
tax charged on this is VAT.
Yes.
Unfortunately, all my billing is service tax. So none of it gets set off against the other. So I'm
just nuts.
Absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, this, hopefully by getting it all under one umbrella,
Probably. Yes.
it lets me set off one thing against the other.
Absolutely.
And
I don't know if that's what they're doing, though.
that is
That
what
is-
it is.
that
That
is
is
what
what they're. Your set off is universal. Rates are
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. So the cascading effect will carry forward.
Just get a CA before 1st July and let him
No,
talk
as a
us through GST. But I think you should do that on someone else's show for sure.
Yeah, I don't think that I honestly I
but-
don't think I could do it for I admire you for being able to have the balls to sit through that seminar tomorrow, man. I mean, I really, really have nothing but admiration for your commitment to it.
And
Thank
about
you.
logistics, where you basically have to tell him solve 28 taxes for me. He
Yeah.
probably already hates you anyway
My
about
goodness.
the kind of paperwork you make him do. But man, no. So I think it's interesting. We're at a very interesting inflection point. I know people have had a lot more preparation time for GST than they had for demonetization.
Sarcasm much?
So I think let's hope the transition goes well, and let's hope to see some serious upgradation of people's tech and the way of doing business.
Yeah,
I think
I hope
what
it
we
helps.
started this conversation with was how the ways of doing business in this country, especially like as an entrepreneur, as a bootstrapper starting out, there are so many black holes. I think this will hopefully reduce a little bit of those.
I hope so.
And make people take a little more risk. We also spoke about how legally there's so many black holes again. I think so. This is just one more thing gone, right? Just as you said,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
when you mentioned payments being gone, or at least the complexity around it.
Complexity around it.
It's, subscriptions are still a problem, man. I mean,
they'll-
hopefully that happens soon, man. Because that's to require two-party authentication on every single payment is just insane. I mean, I'm sorry, it just is.
Yeah, it doesn't
It
make
is.
sense
It is.
anymore.
I mean, they're slowly going up.
Yeah,
but I see I see a ray of hope in terms of a lot of the payments.
No, but the
solutions.
problem, so from what I understand, is also something like Paytm, which is a bank, right? Even they are not, they're being prevented because they're a bank from now doing any kind of payment solution on their list.
That's right.
And sorry, any kind of subscription solution there. So I mean, And you know what? I mean, okay, so this is probably specific to my particular business, right? But in this business, the initial kind of advertisers who come on board for this kind of podcasting kind of business are typically people who are running subscription services.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because they have a high lifetime customer value.
Yeah.
Now, there are no subscription businesses over here because a subscription business is basically, okay, pay me for 6 months in advance.
Yeah.
That's your subscription business.
Yep.
Because I can't do monthly billing
I can't do
because
a
of the
monthly-
whole
exactly,
two-factor being
yeah.
a hindrance in that whole thing.
But then again, to mention how initially when you do start off, and if you're trying to build a company, and you have no capital, people traditionally have done, hey, pay me lump sum for a project fee
Right.
Yeah.
instead, so that I have some working capital, instead of just building a SaaS product.
Absolutely. I think
And we've all done it.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
been in services. I've
Yeah,
been in
yeah,
services.
yeah.
He's still in services, and
as a matter of fact, that's how Ship Easy also transitioned from being a very generic product to a very specific product.
right.
And we allowed our R&D to be sponsored by projects by saying that, okay, if you want it this way, it overlaps with 60% of what I want to do. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
And that 60%, that intellectual property, I'm going to take it and then probably find another guy who's overlapping with another 20% and, make that puzzle come together.
Right.
Right.
And then dole it out as a subscription because, my capex for the R&D has been subsidized by other people's
Correct.
projects.
Right. Absolutely.
And that's a very to be honest, it's a very typical way a lot of people choose this.
Very
It makes
typical.
sense to do it in that way, right? If you're trying to run a
Absolutely.
service business, I mean, like, it just makes sense. I was telling you about the algorithm friend of mine who's running this, the fintech stock algorithm
Right.
stuff, right? For him also, it's the same kind of thing. He's building these kind of algorithms for each individual person, but as he goes on, he's gradually kind of combining all of them into a single product.
Correct.
And that just makes sense.
No, I think that's been the quintessential Indian mindset of doing services first to productize later.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I think it very badly gets pushed into jugaad.
Right?
That's how, you jugaad your business into whatever that... I don't know, probably, white labeling. Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe the white labeling term is a very bad term that entrepreneurs look at each other.
Yeah, product people just hate the word.
I
white
don't.
label.
I think white label is an awesome word. I think, honestly, I think white label products are great.
Absolutely. I think, and that's been the story for a lot of people before they became product entrepreneurs anyway.
Right.
Which they don't want to probably look back on. But yeah, that's the nature of the game. You have to play it. I think even your customers here today still like on-premise software. In fact, I wonder if there's a cloud-based CA software. Imagine if there is. I don't think so.
There is.
There are, but how many of your CAs want to use it?
No CA wants to use it. No CA wants to use anything but Tally.
Yeah.
See?
But the Intuit product that they have for accounting is a superior product to Tally is.
Absolutely.
I'm sure.
It's absolutely a superior product, but nobody wants anything but Tally.
Absolutely.
See.
Every CA will assure you that Tally is by far the most powerful financial tool available to us.
But for Tally to work, I need to keep a machine for Tally, and that's all.
And that person, that person has to be trained under the CA.
Yes.
Cycle continues.
Yes. Oh man, it's a whole ecosystem of their own.
I hope my CA is not listening to this podcast.
I hope my CA is not listening to this podcast either, man.
But see, we'll get there. I think we have hope in terms of the kind of upgradations we're seeing in a lot of spaces.
Yeah.
Whether it's logistics, whether it's payments, whether it's financial accounting, all the dark, boring black holes of the country is.
But that's where that's where the real kind of the value to unlock in this
exactly.
place
That's
is, right?
what I was
That's
trying
where
to
it's all
get
there.
to.
Yeah.
That's where it's there.
I think earlier when you were saying that Indian entrepreneurs are not aggressive enough,
right?
But then these are the black boxes where you can be aggressive and you can really
look. I mean, again, just to bring another example, look at ClearTax.
Yeah.
What they're doing with
Oh,
income
yeah.
tax. I mean, that's a brilliant product.
Yeah.
Now internationally recognized, right? I mean,
absolutely.
so I think there's going to be a few more.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see Ship Easy on a big board like that.
Thank you for
And
those wishes.
we'll probably see a lot more some cloud CA one day.
Absolutely. I hope we see a lot more talk radios as a matter of fact. What you
so
guys
as
are
well.
doing is very interesting.
Absolutely.
so.
I think so. I think, see, I mean, this is the 7th time we're doing this show, and it already feels like so much value is being unlocked.
Yeah,
I hope for a lot more people beyond just us.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, now my traveling schedule, both in and out of office, is surrounded by FM because I generally want to keep a tab, but there's so much ad there. I would rather listen to a talk radio.
Yeah, no kidding, man.
You know, I'll catch up on current events, as a matter of fact, with peer groups who's got a...
I have 21 different shows. Please download my app and check them out.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I'm going to download the app and going to listen to it. What good is 4G if you're not using it this way?
See, he's got it right, people. Everybody download the app.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Great.
Good. I think we're doing great on time today.
Yeah, I think we're going to wrap up in less than an hour.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's a first. I think we're getting better at this. Thanks for bearing with us, guys. I think we've got some great feedback. Just to wrap it up, thanks so much for being here, Mayur.
It was a pleasure.
It's been great catching up. We hope to have you back post GST maybe, and see how look back on our conversations for today.
I think we can do that. Good.
And thanks, Amit, as usual. And
Thank you, Amit.
you know where to find us, guys. ivmpodcast.com/Shunya1 and your favorite podcast app.
And
just a reminder, go on iTunes, give us those ratings, give us those reviews. Really help get the word out.
Also, just to kind of this, everybody, please subscribe to the Slack channel. Again, go to the webpage, and over there'll be a big fat button saying that, hey, I want to subscribe to the Slack button. Press that, give us your email address, and we will send you an invite.
Yes, and we hope to have more discussion topics posted by everyone on this channel there. Yes. And I will talk to you next week.
Excuse me, भैया. Excuse me.
बोलिए मैडम.
मेन्यू में क्या है?
मेन्यू में सीन अनसीन है, पॉडकास्ट है, ऑन कोर्स है, साइरस है, मेड इन इंडिया, रीडिस्कवरी प्रोजेक्ट, एम्पावरिंग सीरीज, सेक्स वैक्स है, IVM लाइक्स है, सिंप्लीफाइड है, कीपिंग इट क्वियर है, थिंग्स एंड डेस्टिनेशंस है, माय नेबर जकरबर्ग है और द फैन गराज है. आपको क्या चाहिए?
एक बार रिपीट कर देंगे क्या?
रिपीट नहीं करता हम. आप जाओ ivmpodcast.com पे और सुनो ये सब, या फिर डाउनलोड करो उनका ऐप. सब आपकी उंगलियों पे.